normal amount of understeer, this is a front-wheel drive car, is present at all speeds and makes the 5000S an extremely comfortable car to maneuver. This big sedan instills the driver with lots of confidence.
Scandals have a way of leaving permanent scars, and in the world of automobiles, they can be downright fatal. Sometimes a car isn't killed by poor sales or outdated technology. It's taken down by controversy, lawsuits, or shocking revelations that no amount of marketing could save. From corporate cover-ups and safety disasters to fraud and even criminal charges, history is full of cars that were meant to be legends, but instead became cautionary tales. In this countdown, we'll explore 15 cars that met their untimely end not on the road, but in the headlines. Some were supposed to be revolutionary, others were designed to dominate their era, yet each fell victim to scandals so big that production had no choice but to stop. Stick around, because you'll recognize some famous names and discover a few shocking stories you may never have heard before. Number 15. The Suzuki Samurai. When Suzuki brought the Samurai to the United States in the mid-1980s, it looked like a winner. Compact, affordable, and capable off-road, it quickly built a cult following among young drivers and outdoor enthusiasts. On paper, it should have been a success story that lasted for decades, but one scandal would forever taint its reputation. In 1988, Consumer Reports released a scathing review, claiming the Samurai was dangerously prone to rollovers during normal driving. The magazine even labeled it unsafe, sparking nationwide panic. Suzuki hit back, accusing Consumer Reports of bias and manipulation, but the damage was already done. Sales collapsed almost overnight as customers abandoned the little SUV. Though Suzuki tried to fight back legally, the controversy buried the Samurai in the US market. What should have been an enduring competitor to the Jeep Wrangler became a textbook example of how a scandal can destroy a car's future. Number 14. The Audi 5000. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Audi was starting to gain traction in the US market. The Audi 5000, with its sleek design and advanced engineering, was supposed to be the brand's breakthrough luxury sedan. It offered European refinement at a time when American buyers were looking for something different from the usual domestic options. But instead of becoming a symbol of progress, the 5000 became infamous thanks to one of the most damaging scandals in automotive history. In 1986, CBS's television program 60 Minutes aired an explosive report claiming that the Audi 5000 suffered from sudden unintended acceleration. According to the segment, drivers said the car would accelerate on its own, often causing serious accidents. The footage showed cars lurching forward uncontrollably, and the public response was immediate. Sales of the 5000 nosedived, and Audi's reputation in America nearly collapsed overnight. What made the scandal worse was that, over time, investigators determined that many of the incidents were actually caused by driver error, specifically drivers confusing the accelerator with the brake pedal. But by the time the truth surfaced, the damage was irreversible. Audi withdrew the 5000, and the brand's US sales dropped by more than 80% in just a few years. It would take Audi decades to recover its reputation, proving that once a scandal sticks, no amount of engineering brilliance can erase it quickly. Number 13. The Chevrolet Corvair. When Chevrolet introduced the Corvair in 1960, it was hailed as one of the most innovative cars America had ever produced. With its rear-mounted, air-cooled engine and European-inspired styling, It was unlike anything else on the market. The Corvair was supposed to be GM's bold answer to compact imports like the Volkswagen Beetle. For a time, it worked. Buyers loved its affordability and quirky design. But beneath the surface, a scandal was brewing that would ultimately kill the car and stain its legacy forever. In 1965, lawyer and consumer advocate Ralph Nader published his groundbreaking book, Unsafe at Any Speed. The first chapter targeted the Corvair specifically, accusing it of having a dangerously unstable suspension that could cause sudden loss of control. Nader claimed the Corvair's design flaws made it prone to rollovers, branding it a death trap in the eyes of the public. Although GM tried to defend itself and even went so far as to hire private investigators to discredit Nader, the public had already made up its mind. Sales collapsed, and the Corvair quickly went from groundbreaking to infamous. By 1969, GM pulled the plug on the model, signaling the end of one of its most daring experiments. Years later, additional studies suggested that the Corvair wasn't significantly more dangerous than other cars of its time. But the scandal had already cemented its place in history as the car that sparked America's automotive safety movement. Instead of being remembered as innovative, the Corvair became the poster child for corporate negligence and the dangers of cutting corners in design. Number 12. The Ford Pinto. Few cars in history are as synonymous with scandal as the Ford Pinto. Launched in 1971, the Pinto was Ford's answer to the growing demand for small, fuel-efficient cars. On the surface, it looked like a practical, no-frills compact that could compete with imports flooding the American market. But beneath its simple design was a deadly flaw that would turn it into one of the most notorious cars ever built. The scandal centered on the Pinto's fuel tank. Positioned just behind the rear bumper, the tank was highly vulnerable in rear-end collisions. Tests revealed that even low-speed crashes could cause the tank to rupture, leading to fires and, in many cases, horrific fatalities. The real outrage came not just from the design flaw itself, but from what was uncovered afterward. Internal Ford documents revealed that the company had performed a cost-benefit analysis and determined it would be cheaper to pay off potential lawsuits than to fix the design. When this information became public in the late 1970s, it triggered a firestorm. The idea that a major automaker had put profits above human lives destroyed the Pinto's reputation and tarnished Ford's image for years. The car was pulled from production in 1980, but by then, its legacy as a rolling scandal was firmly etched into history. Even today, the Pinto remains a case study in business ethics and corporate responsibility, often taught in law and business schools. What should have been just another small car of the 1970s became instead one of the darkest chapters in automotive history. Number 11. The Delorean DMC-12. Few cars carry as much legend and scandal as the Delorean DMC-12. When John DeLorean unveiled his stainless steel, gull-winged sports car in the early 1980s, it looked like something out of the future. Sleek, bold, and instantly recognizable, the DMC-12 was marketed as a car that would redefine the industry. But instead of revolutionizing sports cars, it became the center of one of the most dramatic scandals in automotive history. The DMC-12 suffered from quality issues almost immediately. Underpowered engines, sloppy build quality, and high prices turned buyers away. Sales were disappointing. But the real scandal came in 1982, when John Delorean himself was arrested in a high-profile FBI sting operation. He was accused of conspiring to traffic millions of dollars worth of cocaine in a desperate attempt to save his failing company. The images of the once celebrated auto executive in handcuffs sent shockwaves through the industry. Although Delorean was later acquitted after proving entrapment, the damage was already done. Investors fled, the company collapsed, and the DMC-12 was discontinued after only a few years of production. The scandal overshadowed everything else about the car. Ironically, the DMC-12 later became a cultural icon thanks to its starring role in the Back to the Future movies. But in reality, the car itself was more famous for its scandal-ridden downfall than its performance on the road. Today, it remains a bittersweet reminder of how hype, mismanagement, and controversy can derail even the boldest of automotive dreams. Number 10. The Tucker 48. The Tucker 48, also known as the Tucker Torpedo, is one of the most legendary what-could-have-been stories in car history. Designed by Preston Tucker in the late 1940s, this car was decades ahead of its time. With innovations like a rear-mounted engine, a padded dashboard, disc brakes, and even a central Cyclops eye headlight that swiveled with the steering, the Tucker 48 was meant to revolutionize the American automobile. But instead of becoming the future of driving, it became a victim of scandal and controversy. As Tucker began producing the car, he attracted attention, not just from eager buyers, but from powerful competitors and government regulators. The big three automakers saw the Tucker as a threat, and soon federal investigators accused Tucker of fraud. They alleged that his company was essentially a stock scam, designed to take investors' money without ever producing a real car. The scandal grew into a full-blown courtroom drama. Although Tucker was eventually acquitted of all charges, the damage was irreversible. His company collapsed under financial strain, and only 51 Tuckers were ever built. The car's promise of innovation was buried under a cloud of suspicion. Today, the Tucker 48 is celebrated as a collector's gem and a symbol of innovation crushed by scandal, corporate pressure, and politics. What could have been a game-changing American car was instead canceled before it even had the chance to prove itself. Number 9. The GM EV1. The General Motors. EV1 wasn't just another car, it was a glimpse into the future. Launched in the mid-1990s, the EV1 was the first mass-produced electric vehicle from a major automaker. With its aerodynamic shape, futuristic design, and quiet electric drivetrain, it gave drivers a taste of what a clean, gasoline-free future could look like. Early adopters loved it, and for a brief moment, it seemed like GM had sparked a revolution. But then, the scandal hit. Instead of building on the EV1's momentum, GM abruptly pulled the plug on the program. In 2003, the company repossessed nearly all the leased cars, citing high production costs and limited demand. The majority of EV1s were crushed, leaving only a handful preserved in museums. The real scandal wasn't just that GM canceled the car, it was the suspicion of why. Many believed the automaker had caved to pressure from oil companies and internal corporate interests that didn't want electric cars to threaten gasoline profits. The release of the 2006 documentary Who Killed the Electric Car? Only fueled the outrage, portraying the EV1's cancellation as one of the most blatant cases of corporate sabotage in automotive history. The EV1 could have made GM a leader in electric vehicles decades earlier, but instead, its scandalous cancellation left the company lagging behind competitors. Today, the EV1 is remembered less as a failure and more as a symbol of what was lost, an electric dream strangled by controversy. Number 8. Mitsubishi's fuel economy scandal cars. For decades, Mitsubishi built a reputation for making affordable, dependable cars with a touch of sporty flair. But in 2016, the company's entire image was shattered when a fuel economy scandal came to light. One that forced Mitsubishi to cancel key models and nearly destroyed the brand. It all started when internal investigations revealed that Mitsubishi had been falsifying fuel economy data for decades. The company admitted to manipulating test procedures on some of its smallest cars, including the EK Wagon and EK Space, as well as models it supplied to Nissan. By overstating miles per gallon, Mitsubishi had essentially been lying to customers about efficiency, a cardinal sin in an industry where fuel economy is a major selling point. The scandal triggered an immediate backlash in Japan and abroad. Sales plummeted, lawsuits mounted, and regulators came down hard. Consumers who had trusted the brand felt betrayed, and Mitsubishi's already fragile reputation took another massive hit. Within months, the company's finances were in freefall, forcing Nissan to step in and buy a controlling stake just to keep the automaker alive. The fallout was swift. Several models were pulled from the lineup, and Mitsubishi had to restructure its operations completely. Although the brand survived, the scandal canceled not just cars, but also Mitsubishi's independence as a major automaker. Today, the incident remains a stark reminder that once consumer trust is broken, it's almost impossible to win back, and that some scandals can wipe out more than just a single model. Number 7. The Pontiac Fiero. When Pontiac introduced the Fiero in 1984, it was billed as America's affordable mid-engine sports car. With futuristic styling, sharp lines, and a design that put the engine behind the driver, it looked like a Ferrari for a fraction of the price. Car enthusiasts were excited, and Pontiac finally seemed ready to shake off its image as a maker of bland sedans. For a brief moment, the Fiero was a sales success. But then came the scandal. Reports began surfacing that Fieros were catching fire, literally. Thousands of cars were recalled after it was discovered that defective connecting rods and leaky oil systems could cause engines to burst into flames. The media pounced on the story, branding the Fiero unsafe and dangerous. Even worse, critics accused GM of knowing about the issues long before they acted, fueling the idea that the company had ignored safety in pursuit of profit. As if that weren't enough, the Fiero also suffered from a reputation for poor performance. Early models were underpowered, and by the time Pontiac introduced more powerful versions to fix the problem, the scandal had already done its damage. Sales collapsed, and GM quietly killed the car after the 1988 model year. What could have been a revolutionary American sports car became a symbol of corporate corner-cutting and scandalous mismanagement. Today, the Fiero has a small cult following, but its name will always be tied to the fire controversy that burned away its future. Number 6. Volkswagen Dieselgate cars. For years, Volkswagen proudly marketed its diesel cars as clean alternatives, vehicles that combined great fuel economy with low emissions. Models like the Jetta, Passat, and Golf TDI were bestsellers, especially in Europe and North America, where buyers wanted efficiency without sacrificing performance. VW positioned itself as the leader of an eco-friendly revolution. But in 2015, the truth came crashing down in what became known as Dieselgate, a scandal so massive it rocked the entire industry. Investigators discovered that Volkswagen had deliberately installed defeat devices in millions of its diesel cars worldwide. These software programs could detect when the car was undergoing emissions testing and temporarily reduce pollution levels to meet legal standards. But out on real roads, the cars were spewing nitrogen oxides at levels up to 40 times higher than allowed. The scandal was explosive. Governments launched investigations, lawsuits piled up, and Volkswagen's carefully built reputation collapsed almost overnight. Billions of dollars in fines, recalls, and buybacks followed. Popular models tied to the diesel program were pulled from production in key markets, effectively canceling VW's once vaunted diesel lineup. Perhaps the most shocking part of Dieselgate wasn't just the deception itself, but the scale. Over 11 million cars worldwide were affected. What had been hailed as a technological triumph was exposed as one of the largest corporate frauds in history. Even now, years later, the words "clean diesel" are tainted, and Volkswagen is still working to rebuild trust. Dieselgate proved that one scandal can topple even the most respected automakers and end entire product lines in the process. Number 5. The Chrysler TC by Maserati. In the 1980s, Chrysler was desperate to add some prestige to its lineup. To do that, they teamed up with Maserati, the Italian luxury automaker, to create a stylish grand touring coupe, the Chrysler TC by Maserati. On paper, it sounded like a dream. American practicality blended with Italian flair. Chrysler hyped the car heavily, calling it a symbol of international cooperation and luxury for the masses. But instead of making history for the right reasons, the TC went down as one of the most embarrassing scandals in Chrysler's history. When the car launched in 1989, buyers quickly realized that it wasn't the exotic, Italian-infused sports car they had been promised. Beneath its Maserati badge, the TC looked and felt suspiciously similar to the cheaper Chrysler LeBaron. Critics blasted it as nothing more than a badge-engineered cash grab. Even worse, the price tag was outrageous, costing nearly twice as much as the LeBaron, while offering little improvement in performance or refinement. The scandal wasn't about mechanical flaws or safety issues. It was about deception and broken promises. Chrysler had promised a Maserati-infused masterpiece, but delivered a dressed-up LeBaron with a luxury price tag. Customers felt cheated, and the press tore it apart. Sales tanked, and Chrysler was left with a financial and reputational disaster. By 1991, the TC was quietly discontinued, becoming a cautionary tale about overhyping partnerships and under-delivering on expectations. Today, the Chrysler TC by Maserati is remembered less as a car and more as a scandalous flop, a reminder that sometimes the biggest cancellations come not from technical failures, but from corporate arrogance and consumer betrayal. Number 4. The Fisker Karma. In the early 2010s, the Fisker Karma was supposed to be the future of luxury driving. Henrik Fisker, a celebrated automotive designer known for his work on cars like the Aston Martin DB9 and BMW Z8, launched his own company with the promise of creating a high-end, eco-friendly plug-in hybrid. The Karma debuted with sleek, jaw-dropping styling and cutting-edge technology that seemed to put it years ahead of the competition. Celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio snapped them up, and for a moment, it looked like Tesla had real competition. But behind the glamour, the Karma was plagued with problems. Reports of poor build quality, software glitches, and reliability nightmares spread quickly. The biggest scandal, however, came when several Karmas caught fire due to battery-related issues. One particularly infamous incident happened when a Karma burst into flames while parked in a garage, destroying not only the car, but parts of the owner's home. To make matters worse, Fisker had taken massive government loans to support its operations. When the company declared bankruptcy in 2013, taxpayers were left holding the bill. Critics slammed Fisker for over-promising, mismanaging funds, and failing to deliver a reliable car despite huge financial backing. The Karma was officially cancelled, and while a new company later revived the design under the name Karma Automotive, the damage was done. Instead of being remembered as a trailblazing green luxury car, the Fisker Karma became a symbol of broken promises, fiery scandals, and one of the biggest bankruptcies in the history of alternative vehicles. Number 3. The Saab 9.5 collapse. Saab was once a beloved brand, famous for quirky engineering and Scandinavian charm. Cars like the Saab 900 built a cult following with their turbocharged engines, unique styling, and reputation for safety. By the late 1990s, the company introduced the Saab 9.5, a sleek executive sedan that was meant to compete with BMW, Audi, and Mercedes-Benz. It had the potential to be Saab's flagship, the car that could keep the brand alive. But instead, the 9.5 became a symbol of Saab's tragic downfall. The scandal wasn't tied to crashes or fires, it was corporate mismanagement and financial chaos. After General Motors took control of Saab, the brand struggled to maintain its identity. The 9.5 was delayed, underfunded, and repeatedly reworked. By the time the redesigned model finally launched in 2010, GM was in bankruptcy and had already decided to sell Saab. New ownership under Spiker Cars tried to revive the 9.5, but the money wasn't there. Suppliers weren't paid, production halted, and scandals over missed payments and broken promises dominated headlines. Customers who ordered new 9.5s often never received them, and dealerships were left hanging. By 2012, Saab filed for bankruptcy, and the 9.5 was cancelled along with the rest of the lineup. The scandal of the 9.5 wasn't about faulty engineering. It was about a corporate tug-of-war that left loyal customers betrayed. Saab's quirky charm couldn't survive GM's mismanagement, financial scandals, and empty promises. Instead of saving the brand, the 9.5 became the final nail in Saab's coffin. Number 2. The Ford Explorer and Firestone tire scandal. In the 1990s, the Ford Explorer was one of America's hottest-selling SUVs. It had the rugged looks, family-friendly practicality, and affordable price tag that made it a staple in driveways across the country. But by the late 90s, a scandal erupted that not only threatened the Explorer, but also dragged down one of the world's most famous tire manufacturers, Firestone. The issue was deadly. Thousands of Ford Explorers equipped with Firestone tires were involved in rollover accidents. Investigators discovered that certain Firestone tires were prone to tread separation, especially in hot climates. When the tread peeled off, the Explorer's high center of gravity often caused it to flip. The results were catastrophic. Hundreds of deaths and thousands of injuries. The scandal exploded in the media. Congressional hearings grilled both companies, exposing years of finger-pointing and ignored warnings. Ford blamed Firestone for defective tires. Firestone countered, arguing that the Explorer's design made it dangerously unstable. Consumers were caught in the middle, terrified that their family SUV was a ticking time bomb. In the end, millions of tires were recalled. The Ford Explorer's reputation was permanently damaged, and Firestone's century-old brand was nearly destroyed. Lawsuits cost billions, and the partnership between Ford and Firestone, once one of the most iconic in automotive history, collapsed in scandal. The Explorer survived with redesigned tires and safety upgrades, but Firestone never fully recovered. This scandal showed how corporate negligence, when combined with deadly consequences, can cancel not just a product, but entire business relationships. Number 1. The Smart Fortwo, U.S. Safety Backlash. When the Smart Fortwo arrived in the U.S. in 2008, it was marketed as the ultimate city car. Imported by Mercedes-Benz's parent company Daimler, the Fortwo promised incredible fuel economy, ultra-compact parking convenience, and a hip, eco-conscious image. In crowded cities like New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, it seemed like the perfect fit. For a while, the hype was real, sales were strong, and the car was hailed as a bold step toward urban mobility. But the honeymoon didn't last. The Fortwo quickly ran into a scandal that had nothing to do with its efficiency and everything to do with safety. American crash tests revealed that while the car technically met minimum standards, its tiny size made it look terrifyingly fragile in real-world collisions. Videos of smart cars crumpling in crashes against SUVs went viral, creating a perception that the Fortwo was a death trap on American highways. The scandal wasn't entirely about actual fatalities, it was about public perception. Consumers felt Daimler had oversold the Fortwo's practicality while ignoring U.S. road realities, where massive trucks and SUVs dominated. Sales plummeted, dealerships struggled, and Daimler eventually pulled the plug on Smart in the U.S. market by 2019. What could have been a quirky, eco-friendly alternative ended in embarrassment. The Fortwo's cancellation wasn't just about low sales, it was about a scandal of consumer trust, safety concerns, and the realization that what works in European cities doesn't always survive the American highway. From fiery sports cars to fraudulent emissions claims, these scandals remind us that cars don't just live or die in showrooms, they live and die in the headlines. Each of these 15 models carried big promises, bold designs, and, in some cases, revolutionary technology. Yet all it took was one scandal, whether corporate deception, safety failures, or financial collapse, to wipe them out of existence. What's fascinating is how differently each story ended. Some, like the Delorean DMC-12 and GM EV1, gained cult status long after their cancellation. Others, like the Ford Pinto or Mitsubishi's scandal cars, remain cautionary tales of corporate arrogance and betrayal. In the end, scandals don't just kill cars, they reshape the entire auto industry. Which one of these disasters shocked you the most? And do you think any of these cars deserved a second chance? Let us know in the comments below.